Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. I am here today with Bob Thompson. He is the anti-real estate agent and a motivational speaker. We're going to talk today about why we settle for what everybody else thinks that we should do. And also, leading into that, if you choose to not settle for what everyone thinks you should do, what makes you good enough to do something different than what everybody else is doing? But before we dive into all that juicy stuff, I would like, Bob, if you're willing, for you to share a bit about what is an anti-real estate agent. Tell me what it is that you actually do being an anti-real estate agent.
Well, with that smiling face, how could I not answer that question, first of all? Honestly, what I do, what I believe, what I know for a fact that I do differently is I don't play the game. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of the property, whether if we're on the listing side, this is what the house is worth and this is why. I know that you think it's worth 450 because your children grew up in it, but that doesn't add value to the house. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. And on the buy side, as a former Class A contractor, I can walk in the door and go, okay, well, that's wrong, this is wrong, and this is wrong. And you may like all of the shiny paint work that's been done to it and the appliances, but if the house is falling apart, we don't need to buy this house. That's the information you need. My job is not to just put a deal together. My job is to negotiate in your best for you, and to tell you the truth and tell you if I think the house is garbage or not. Now, you may still choose the house, and that's your decision, and I'm going to fight for you. But you need to know the things that I'm seeing based on my years of experience, based on what I've dealt with. The other thing that I do, and we're not necessarily supposed to do it, is I'm not going to put you in some place I know you're going to get shot at. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I mean, call it what you want, but there may be a reason for, and a method to my madness if I'm going, okay, well, let's go look over here and not over here, and this is why. And then I can have that conversation, or I can say, well, you might want to pull your local crime statistics and things of that nature, because especially, I live in Hampton Roads, Virginia, which is essentially Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake. So a lot of military. So they may be coming in and not knowing what they're dealing with. And I think it's important to be honest with them.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do is I don't do the branded stuff. So you're not going to see me with the little happy duty little signs and water bottles and all the assorted other crap that most agents do. I don't do it. I'm not going to do it. And it's not how I operate. I literally, I do my Wu-Tang rant of the week on Fridays. I'm most of the time I'm in t-shirts and jeans, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And it works. And if anything, most of the time when I get referred out, because I do a ton of referral business, they typically will say, well, Bob's going to tell you the truth, and he can be a little rough around the edges, but he knows what he's talking about, and he did a really good job, and we're really happy with him. So I'm okay with that. I would rather have that be known as that person than just be some sort of ordinary average real estate agent. It just doesn't work for me.
Well, and that really speaks to what we're going to talk about, is doing what you're supposed to do. And like everybody's like, in real estate, you're supposed to do this, this, and this, or in coaching, the coaching world or business coaching world, you just have to do this, this, and this. And what I think people are responding to personally, I think we are stepping into an age of authenticity, especially with all the AI coming in, and people are craving what's real.
Yeah,
And
you have to be yourself. And I think a lot of agents aren't particularly very real, and they come from that perspective, and it just doesn't work. And a lot of agents talk about how hard their job is. No, it's not. I scraped concrete in 110-degree weather.
Mhm.
I've worked in the cold doing a physical job for 12-hour shifts. I don't want to hear about it. I mean, it's not rocket science. Do your job, do a good job. I'm blessed to do this. I'm blessed to do what I'm doing, and I'm happy about it.
And I think one of the things, though, that people, why they think they keep having to, do what they're supposed to do, and I'm imagining this is true in the real estate world, is that, You think that's what you need to do to succeed and get really successful. But what I've seen in every industry and in the work that I do with my clients, you have to create sustainable wealth or a sustainable business. You've got to build one step at a time. It doesn't happen overnight. Sure, there are quick fixes you can do and these big things that can create windfalls, but most people can't hold it. So when I hear you say that you hear other real estate agents say, oh, it's so hard, what I'm picturing is that they're constantly scrambling to try to hold up a house of cards. And that is fucking hard.
Yeah.
So, but if you're just being your authentic self and building whatever you're building, whatever kind of business, one step at a time based on the authenticity of you, it's a lot easier because you're not trying to hold up a house of cards. You're laying brick.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that completely. And I think that's the case across the board for a lot of people, is that they've got to take the time to do it. And success doesn't necessarily have to be your name and lights. I've been blessed to know people from various different areas of life, and they can be successful within their own niche and their own spot, but yet walk down the street and nobody knows who they are, but yet still successful in their industry and whatever that they do. And to me, that's almost the greatest type of success, is because you're known just enough within your little world, you're successful, you're making your money, but at the same time, you can still go out and have a nice meal and not get harassed and, autographs and all the rest of that stuff. So I think that's an interesting spot to try to kind of be in at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious though, why for you is it important to be the anti-real estate agent, to do it the way you do it, to be so honest and upfront and maybe a little rough around the edges? Why is it so important for you to have that authenticity in real estate?
Because it's the only way I know. And when I got into the industry full time at 35, I left a job where, I had to follow all of the rules and do what I was told, and 15 bosses and all of that. So I felt like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way. If I wanted to just do what I'm told and toe the line, I would have just stayed at the chemical plant for another 15 years, made my little money, made my little pension, done my little thing. And that would have had my one vacation a year and then been done and cut the grass on weekends and been done with it. But I didn't want to do that. So I had to make a decision to be who I am. And I was miserable having 15 bosses and being told what to do and all of that. So I decided I'm blessed to do this. I'm blessed to be a coach. I got lucky. I fell into something that I'm absolutely good at, and it allows me to be me. And for me, that's everything. So I try to act accordingly in that respect.
Let's get into your story a little bit. You were at the chemical plant and you were living the life that you were supposed to live, right? Everybody's like, go to college, do the thing, get the job. And tell me how you decided, what was it? Was there a tipping point that made you decide, hey, this is really not for me?
Oh yeah. I mean, and you've got to understand that when I got that job, I started on the plant, and it was, call it a means to an end. Okay. It was okay. I am 26. It's time for me to get a real job. I've had jobs, but I need to get a quote unquote career. It's time. At the time I was getting ready to get engaged at the time to my ex-wife and all of that good stuff. So, you got to put some money on the table. You can't just be a bum anymore. So I got the job on the plant, and then I worked my way into the lab. And then from that point on is where I stayed. The turning point really was probably 2004, 2005, where I had started buying rental property. Then I was going to go back to school to get my environmental protection degree. So I'm in freshman chemistry with a lab coat with my name on it. I've got all my own supplies. And after about a day and a half, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm miserable. And it becomes a question of, okay, if I am going to come home every day and be grumpy after a 12-hour shift, do you want me grumpy or do you want me coming home happy when I feel like I can at least make the same amount of money that I was making as a chemist? So we put a 3-year plan together, got it done in 2 years. And in 2007 of April, I walked out of that chemical plant and left the lab and never looked back. And everybody told me I was completely batshit crazy for doing it because it's a recession and all of this. And I'm like, I've got to do this. I don't have any choice in the matter. I'm not, I was miserable. It just did not, that was my moment. Literally sitting in freshman chemistry as a grown up at like 32, going back to school and going, no, we're done. Like I just, at that point, I shut it down and just started looking for other things to do because, and then I fell into real estate and quote unquote have lived happily ever after.
And so you fell into real estate in that time of the 2008, like big market crash.
Yeah, I went full time in 2007 and then I doubled my income my first year in 2008 because again, I found something I wanted to do. I love, even to this day, I love the negotiation, the hustle, the conversation. It's a real estate is a funny thing. It's a high because when you're in the thick of it and you're putting a deal together, you're all jonesed up. And then when you're like, okay, now we're going to do the home inspection and we're getting close to closing, you're like, and then you get another, and then another one comes together, or you're juggling 3 or 4. I absolutely love that. I like solving problems. If somebody calls me and I'm coaching a young agent or I'm coaching somebody in something else, and it's like, okay, cool, boom, we're problem solving and this and that. Even, you know, that's exciting to me. And then when you get to the day-to-day stuff, okay, well, we had a home inspection today. We're waiting to get the results back. You're just like, blah, blah, blah. You know?
Well, and what I hear in this is a really big be the wolf quality is there's that place in entrepreneurship where you are the master of your destiny. And when you're talking about problem solving, it's on you. It's not like when you're have 15 bosses, the problem solving is not on you. You problem solve, and then you have to go run it by this boss, and then this boss, and then this boss, and maybe they'll like your idea and let you actually solve the problem. But when you work for yourself, it's you. It's like you against the world. And there's something that is so powerful about self-esteem building, about feeling that sense of accomplishment that's so different and so much richer than, oh, I just solved this problem for my boss, because it's a problem for you and what you're trying to create. When you do that, the dopamine hit is different. It's not this like, oh, give me validation dopamine hit. It's like, yes, I am capable. I am powerful. I can do things.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to admit that you can do things. I mean, I think a lot of people that don't push forward or make changes, I think imposter syndrome plays a lot in that. And also whatever their own personal challenges that they have. So even at myself, I have to go back when I'm having a day where things are slow or there's not a whole lot going on. I have to go back and remember my successes and go, okay, well, I've done this before. I can clearly do it again, or whatever the case may be, because I think we all deal with that probably to a greater extent as entrepreneurs or as coaches or public speakers or whatever, because you get the attitude of, well, why the hell does everybody want to listen to what I have to say? So then you have to fight through that and go, or to your people, your folks that are telling you that it's okay to be you and they want to hear you, have to sometimes remind you, like my editor will, hey, dummy, you're good on this. You can go do this and do well at it. So, quit your crying and get ready to rock and roll, because you are capable of this. So it's important to look back at our past successes, even if they're minute, and remember that we can do it. And don't let any negativity in your life. I am big on, I don't want to keep up with anybody else's drama, negativity. I'll help you. I'll do what I can. But at the same time, I don't want any negativity and drama in my life. I don't have time for it.
Yeah. That place where we doubt ourselves, because it's natural for anybody to have self-doubt at some point. And, I like the idea of you saying we've got to remind ourselves of our wins and remind ourselves of what we are capable of, what we've done in the past, what we know deep down that we're capable of, and being able to overcome the naysayers, the people that are like, well, you're crazy, you shouldn't be doing this, or that little voice in the head that says, who do you think you are, or you can't really do this. Those things are very important to overcome. But what is it, do you think, that makes us collectively, the majority of people, settle for the path that everybody tells you should do? Why is it that we settle for always taking the path that other people have taken instead of carving our own path?
I think it's two reasons. I think number one, it's indoctrinated into our head to do that, and I think obviously I'm from probably the last generation at almost 52 to where, okay, Dad went and worked for the same company for 45 years, retired, got a gold watch, took care of his children, and that was it. So I think there's that portion of it. I think the other portion of that is a lot of people get to a certain age and they feel like they can't move forward and they can't make changes. And that's one of the things that I try to push on is that, okay, I did this at 35. I completely flip-flopped everything. Now, obviously at the time I had a supportive partner to do that. And the other thing I learned from that was don't tell anybody your business. Keep your freaking mouth shut. There's so much negativity that we're inundated. And even on the lowest of levels, when I left and I love telling the story, when I left the grocery store to go work at the chemical plant, I had people there telling me that this was the best job I would ever have. And why would I want to leave the grocery store? Because I could be grocery manager one day. Seriously? That's the best that we're shooting for? Which, hey, if you're a produce manager, more power to you. You do what you got to do. But for you to literally tell me at 28, 29 years of age that this is the best it's ever going to get for you, Bob. You can't do any better than this. And if you just keep your mouth shut, we're going to send you to grocery manager school and you're going to move up the food chain and you're still going to have 15 bosses for the rest of your life. That's insane to me. As I look back on it now, it's like, well, who are you to make that decision that I can't do anymore with my life? And I learned a valuable lesson from that is I tell all of my people, just work in the dark, find your tribe, find your circle, and you can talk to them, but everybody else, don't freaking open your mouth because 9 out of 10 times somebody's going to have something negative to say or their own experiences are going to cloud their judgment and they're going to take it out on you. They just are. And it's nothing intentional, but it happens. And I think it's important to remember that. And I think that's ultimately why, because people feel like they're stuck in a rut and they can't make that change. And I'm always pushing that look at most of your great inventors and successful people. I love reading stories about the guy that invented, I don't know, Swanson frozen dinners. It took him 40 years to figure the formula out. Then he did it. And then he, became rich and famous. Or you're somebody that's invented something. It took them forever to figure it out. They weren't young people. They just kept slugging away and everybody told them they were nuts and they kept doing it and they kept doing it. We don't see the journey unless we're on the inside. We only see the finished product. I mean, how many people probably told Jeff Bezos, okay, you're selling books on the internet. That's stupid. You need to stop. Right. Now, I don't know what the man is like in real life. I'd like to think if I was a multi-billionaire, I'd be a nice person, but I don't know at this point. I'd love to find out, but yeah. And we'll see. But again, the man went through all of that stuff. Robert Johnson, who was the founder of BET Television, started buying up stations and doing his thing. And again, there's no money in this. Nobody's going to want to watch, a black-owned television programs and any of that stuff. And then boom, he sells it and makes $1 trillion. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from is just unfortunately listening to other people.
Well, and it's interesting because I think some people use the naysayers as fuel. Like, oh, you think I can't do this? Then I'm going to prove you wrong. And if that's the way you operate, then sure, tell everybody that you're going to do it. But if you are a person in general who is influenced by other people's decisions and influenced on any level by, and this is the majority of people, by people saying, naysaying and saying you can't do something or that's stupid or who do you think you are? If you're influenced by that, I think that's incredibly great advice. Just keep it to yourself, put your head down and do it. What I've seen, what I've learned, my own self and my clients, and digging into the subconscious mind, because that's what I do. And that's where all the juicy stuff that gets in our way comes from, is the more people talk about something, the more they are trying to convince themselves to do it. And so I find that when people have truly decided to do something, they just do it. They don't tell everybody about it. Like if somebody really is just finally made the decision that they're going to lose a bunch of weight, oftentimes they don't even talk about it. They just do it. And there's just that decision point. There's no need to talk about it anymore because they don't need to convince themselves anymore. They just do it and take the steps. And so I find that if you are talking about it constantly, it's important to look to see if you're trying to convince others that you're going to do this thing or if you're trying to convince yourself.
No, that I would agree with that. I think that definitely plays into it. I think that's why it's important to hear voices that are going to be encouraging and not the voices that are going to discourage you. And I think it's important, especially if it's somebody that's important in your world. And in my case, I was blessed that I'm close to both my mother and my father. Now, my mother passed away in 2009, but I'm blessed to have people that support me in my decision making. So when I made that decision to switch over, I was like, okay, well, just make sure you do this and do that. And the truth is, if my father had been like, well, I don't think that's a very good idea, and this is a terrible idea, that would have slowed my progress. And maybe I can't say for sure that I would have pulled the trigger. I would like to think that the part of me that never listens to anybody anyway, that portion of me with the attitude problem would have done it anyway. But it was nice to know that, okay, at worst case, my father's going to support me, and my then wife at the time supported the transition and the switch over. So I think it's important in that respects. But yeah, that's where I think again it comes into finding the people that will at least you can bounce ideas off of, and that's important, or can give you that encouragement when you're feeling a little low or something fails, because most of us invariably fail repeatedly. Lord knows I have on multiple fronts. It's just part of life.
Yeah. And it is really important who you surround yourself with matters, because if we're looking at like scientifically, without any emotion, if you have emotion involved, this is going to be a much smaller number, but you only have to hear something 400 times before you believe it.
Yeah.
So those of you who are watching the news and they're saying the same things over and over and over, there's a point when you almost don't have a choice anymore because something is repeatedly said over and over and over that you will believe it. So one of, I think, the biggest Be the Wolf qualities is getting to this place where you trust your own mind so much that you can hear something multiple times and be able to hold your personal truth without being swayed. But if you're going for a goal and you want to do something outside the box of what you should do, you've got to surround yourself with people that are not going to say 400 times about how you shouldn't do it. And you're right, it slows your progress. I know my progress was slowed. I probably, like this last business, my first two businesses, I had my regular job too. And they inched along, but they never got far enough because I always had the safety net of my regular job. So I didn't really push. And with this one years ago, I just had to cut everything and just go for it and not listen to everybody. My family was like, well, you can, I don't know. I don't know if you should do this. But it was because I was around a few people that were like, yeah, you can do this. And that made a big difference in me continuing when I was like, I can't pay my bills. I don't know what I'm doing here. So I think you're absolutely right in surrounding yourself with people who have a positive attitude and believe in you, even if you don't yet believe in yourself.
Yeah, Les Brown says it best. Sometimes it just takes one person to believe in you more than what you believe in yourself, and you can do anything you want. Or, at worst case, they're at least going to not hold you back and tell you that they're wrong. They may not understand what you're doing. They may
Right.
not have any interest in that portion of your life, but they're still going to be like, oh, cool. Keep doing you. At least you're motivated and you're excited. I don't get it, but hey, you do your thing, and I'll support you, and I'll be clapping at the end of the day. I'm not going to get out there and run a marathon, but I'll stand at the end and congratulate somebody else for running a marathon. I mean, I'm not doing it, but I'll be supportive of somebody else that's trying to do it, even though it's not my thing. But I think and that's the beauty of what I tell young people is that, they have way more choices and opportunities now than that didn't exist. When I was growing up, there was no internet, and your group of people were your neighborhood or who you knew locally. I didn't know anybody. If I had wanted to be a screenwriter, then who would I have talked to in my neighborhood? There wasn't anybody. It didn't exist. Now I could join 15 different screenwriter groups online, turn something in, and I'm going to know very quickly either, okay, Bob, you really suck at this and you need to find something else, or hey, you got a little nugget here. Maybe you should try it this way. And hey, this is what we're working on. And maybe we should collaborate and do these type of things. But at least I would know to where, what was I going to do? Pick up the yellow pages, 40 years ago and call somebody in California? I mean, that was the only way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and you also had like the only ideas that we had about how to do some of those things were things that we had seen on TV or in a movie, or, oh, you just go to LA, or so we have access to so much more information now. And speaking of that, I want to talk about some tips and some other stuff that is going to be really important, but I would love for you to share with us how people can get in touch with you, how they can be mentored by you, how they can do their real estate deals with you and get that fresh honesty that I think and authenticity that I think so many of us crave.
Okay, so you can reach out to me on the website whatbobthinks.com, and you can also follow up that with TikTok and Facebook. Bob the Agent on Facebook. It pretty much all runs the same. I am weird like that to where send me an email, call me, I'll answer the phone. I'm one of those people that I still answer the phone, and I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have, even if it's, hey, let me get your thought on this. Obviously, if it's not Virginia, I can't put the deal together, but I can still give advice and say, okay, well, this is a little weird, and I think you need to perhaps go this way. Or if you're perhaps too emotional about it, I can say, okay, well, let's look at the facts, and you're in this type of environment, and this is what you need to do. But realistically, yeah, they can catch me on, again, whatbobthinks.com is my main website, bobtheagent.com, all of the socials, you know how that goes, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. And again, follow me, send me a message, call me on the phone. I'm not exactly hiding. I'm very easy to get a hold of, and I have no problems answering a phone call or a text. And if I can't answer, I'm in the middle of doing something, then I'll just let you know, and we'll make a time to reach out later and either have a conversation or do a Zoom or whatever the case may be. So I'm very easy to get a hold of. And I quite honestly, I pride myself on that. I think it's important.
Great. And all that information will be in the show notes. But for those of you who want to take a look right now, open up the browsers, type in whatbobthinks.com so you can access that right now. And for the entrepreneurs out there who want some secrets that the business gurus do not tell you, and you can only get this information through me at bethewolfgift.com. So go ahead, open up the browsers, whatbobthinks.com, bethewolfgift.com. And now let's get to some juicy stuff. So, knowing that you have gone through some pretty major stuff, you went through some major health stuff. Yes.
Oh, yes.
And what did that teach you specifically about running a business and succeeding in life?
First of all, I would say life is short. So have your crap together, first of all, or at least attempt to have your crap together. Number two, have various multiple streams of income if possible, or have somebody that's working with you to do other things. What I ran into is in 2018 when I had heart attack number 1 and heart attack number 2 and the quadruple bypass. And I thought I was prepared. I had money in the bank. I had all of these good things that we're supposed to have. The end of 2018, I was flat, broke, busted, empty, gone. In the span of a week and a half, they canceled my bank account, they canceled my credit card, and they repoed my car all in one shot. Now I was able to get the car back, but I went from living very nicely and happy as I could be, new car, new RV, blah, 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 to broke. So I thought I was prepared, but I was not as prepared as I could have been. So that's a portion of it. The other thing is if you've been to the top of the mountain or been successful, then you can do it again. So you put your head down and you do it again. And that's what I did. I used the same tools that I used to transition the first time from chemist to real estate. And basically I put my head down and started grinding. And you can't have any fear at that point. It's like, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to go work at Walmart. I'm basically at this point, I'm unhirable. I mean, I've been a real estate agent for 15 plus years. That's really what got me into the mentoring and the coaching, because in 2019, I wanted to start giving back. And then it became, okay, well, now you're mentoring and coaching young agents. And then it transitioned into, well, now you're mentoring and coaching people in general, because apparently you have something to say and people want to hear it. So it's taking that opportunity and taking that chance and understanding that our journey, we don't know when that journey is going to end. And if the journey had ended when I had my first heart attack, then I would have gone out on a high. He's a successful real estate agent. He just bought a new car. He's got all of this. I have the quote unquote trappings of wealth, blah, blah, blah. If I had died January of 2019, okay, well, the dude's flat broke and somebody else is going to have to pay for his funeral because he's broke. So, and I have no control over either one of those circumstances other than to be prepared as the best I can and understand that the journey is ever changing and I can do my best to write the story. But at the end of the day, I don't have any control over that. So I got to keep moving forward and do what I've got to do. And if I fall, I get back up and keep moving.
I think one of the things you said something really important, that when you succeed once, you can succeed again. And I think one thing that happens to a lot of business owners is we're constantly moving and operating from this fear of what we're going to lose. Like, oh, I don't know if I can take this risk because what if I lose? What if everything fails? But the thing is, you said it so clearly, if you lose everything because you've done it before, you can do it again. And I think we get more and more fearful the more we have sometimes, because for some reason we doubt that we're capable of doing it again. Like there might be some deep subconscious thing that makes us believe that maybe it was just a fluke that I got this successful. And so one of the things I know I do with my clients is we get rid of those beliefs so that you can move forward and I'm not talking about taking stupid risks, but being able to take a risk and continue like, oh, I'm going to try this and continue to grow so that you do potentially have multiple revenue streams. You do keep expanding. If you lose a little bit, that's okay. But to remember that even if you lose it all, you have what it takes to build it again. And you will build it again so much faster. How much quicker were you able to get to that same level of success?
I would say within a year, I was pretty much back to where I was before. And I think what I learned was the mistakes that I had made when I was building the business, I've been able to remedy or reach out to people that are smarter and what I like to call reach out to my betters, people
Mhm.
that whether I like it or not, I can sell real estate and I'm really good at that. But I haven't always ran my business as well as I could have. And I think as entrepreneurs, especially single entity entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to be dependent only upon ourselves. So we're constantly running and running and running and running and running. So I have had to learn the hard way that, okay, it's okay to have a virtual assistant or have somebody that I can bounce ideas off of and do different things and maybe form a little bit of a team. So then if I have to take a break or I'm not have a day where I don't feel good and I'm not getting stuff done, things are still happening in the background, and that's not easy to trust and get somebody else to jump in. But it's important that we try to find people that can prop us back up if we're having a bad day. So I've had to learn from that, and again, know that whether anybody likes it or not, I've never been the best at running my real estate business the way I probably should have started running it in the first place. But I've learned from those mistakes and I can still, and I'm combining the two. And again, that's part of the reason why I joined Legacy Group was because they wanted me to come in and coach agents and do all of that. But at the same time, the guys that are running it are, as far as I'm concerned, whether we like it or not, are heads and shoulders above where I am in terms of, okay, I want to get to that level. So I have to swim with those people and I have to figure out how to be on their level and not compare contrast because there's a reason I'm not where they are and that's okay. But I'm learning from them and I'm getting more and more sure-footed every day and I'm trying to continue to be a success. That's where these podcasts are important because that way people can learn from other people's mistakes, which I think is everything. And reading and learning about other great, other successful people because it keeps motivating us to move forward.
Absolutely. And one of the things when we're talking about learning from other people, I think this is such an important piece is when you grow your self-confidence and your sense of self, you're strong in who you are. You're at this place where you can take the feedback and you can take the knowledge and you can implement it, try it out, discover if it's right for you, but also be able to realize like this is may even though this has worked really well for somebody else, it might not be the exact right path for me. Try it on, see if it's the right fit, but don't assume just because somebody's doing better than you that that is your ultimate right fit. But to continue learning as much as you can from multiple different people so that you can really find the right fit that works for you to run your business in the way that's right for you.
Yeah, and not everybody is a fit for everybody. I mean, I've got a new book coming out, Want More, Take More, and some people are going to love it, and some people are going to like, okay, well, thanks and no thanks. I mean, I am a Les Brown guy. I'm not a Tony Robbins guy. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with Tony Robbins. It means I don't gravitate towards Tony Robbins, and not everybody's going to gravitate towards me. That's the beauty of the world that we live in, that there's people out there that gravitate towards certain people, and you have to own that as an individual and be okay with that you're not going to fit into everybody else's little thing and everybody else's world, and be okay with that. And at the end of the day, there's like 8 or 9 people whose opinion in this world I really care about, and if you're not on that short list, I'm going to listen to what you have to say. I'm going to maybe incorporate it into the way I do things, but I'm going to do them my way.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with taking a nugget from everybody and learning from it. I'm notorious for that, where I'll pick up a new book and get like one little line out of it and be like, oh, that was really smart. And then I'm done. I'm done with that book. I'm never going to go back to it, but I got my one nugget. And for me, I love it when people reach out after doing a podcast, whether it's a real estate agent or an entrepreneur or whatever, and go, hey, that one thing that you said resonated with me and I really appreciate it. To me, that's the victory. That's the win right there. I'll walk around on cloud nine for 2 days over that. He might have ignored everything else that was said, but he or she got that one little piece of information. And I'm like, I'm good. I win.
Well, and that's a big piece of why I do this show is I like to show entrepreneurs at different stages of their journey. And I like to highlight those things that we overcome because generally speaking, everybody is only talking about their wins on social media. And I think it's important to see other people to match where we're at. And your story is going to hit differently to me today than it will 5 years from now, than it would have 5 years ago. So through these stories and through these conversations, we can meet people where they're at and they can pick up a piece of information that can help them get to the next level. And I think that's the best thing about people who've chosen the entrepreneurial journey is that it's a journey of self because the buck stops with you. There's no more waiting for your boss to take care of you. There's no more waiting for somebody else to take care of you. You are the one taking care of you and other people if you have employees and staff. And so it is this place where we're constantly challenging ourselves. And if you're in a small town and there are no other entrepreneurs around you, it is through things like podcasts and Facebook groups and other things that you can be surrounded with people that are doing the same thing and can help keep you motivated to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me. It's harder to explain to somebody that you know what you're trying to accomplish than it is a stranger. I had a buddy of mine, my best friend, his younger brother. They were asking me about the podcasting and doing some of this other stuff that I do, and they're like, he's thinking, okay, well, what's the point in all of this? What are you trying to do? I was like, well, this is what I'm trying to do, and I'm stumbling over my words. And this is somebody that I've known since he was a child. Again, his older brother is my best friend. So I've got 10 years on him. So I don't really care what his opinion is, but at the same time, I found myself stumbling over my words and what my thought process was. And he's looking at me like I got three heads because he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it. And that's okay. But it's easier for us to go out in front of strangers. And I've done it and stand up in front of a room of strangers and give a speech and talk than it is to talk to somebody that we know and feel like, oh, okay, but really, who cares? As long as my best friend is supporting my work and what I'm trying to accomplish, it doesn't really make a difference what his little brother thinks at the end of the day. But I caught myself stumbling over my words and trying to explain myself when that's not his mindset and he's not going to get it. So too bad. We keep moving forward.
Well, and one of the things too, like if we're speaking in front of people, they've come because they're looking for what we have to say. But I think a big piece when we're talking to people that have known us from maybe before, whenever we were before, that I think subconsciously we're in our own head trying to negate or trying to explain why it's different than how they think of us from the past. So there's more than we're trying to undo past impressions rather than just creating the impression of what we are and where we are right now.
No, I would agree with that. And I think you see that at any age. I mean, I know that I've got uncles and cousins that look at me like I'm the same idiot 15-year-old that I was 30 years, 40 years, whatever, how many years ago, so there's always, and you're absolutely right. There's always that past impression sort of thing. It's amazing how you can make changes and adjustments and people are still going to assume you're a certain way. Even folks that have been, I don't know, let's say been to rehab and have been clean and sober for years, there always are going to be people in their background that are going to be like, well, I don't know about Joey. Joey's been freaking clean for 20 years. Can we back off of Joey being a bad guy 21 years ago? Let's
Right. Joey was an addict for 2 years,
yeah,
but
let's
now
let's
he's
give
been clean
Joey a
for
break.
20.
He's got a wife and 2 kids, and he's had the same job, and he's owns his own home, and he's been successful for 20 years, and we're gonna still dog him out because when he was 23, he was an idiot. It doesn't work that way.
So what would you say to when you were, what was it, 26, when they were telling you, get a real job, you need to, start getting a career. And that's when you started working at the chemical plant and started moving in the direction of doing everything you were supposed to do. What did that young man need to know then to maybe avoid some heartache?
I would say probably confidence of self and the tools to look beyond that, which quite honestly did not exist at that time, or at least not for me, didn't exist. So no internet access, none of that. Even in 95, 96, 97, really there was slim and none. But the biggest thing would be confidence of self and knowing who you are. And that's probably where I wasn't necessary. I knew what I had done. I knew that I, number one, don't take direction very well, but I felt like, okay, well, it's time to be a grown up, and this is the path that we're going to take. And it worked for a while. I'm not going to, I worked there for 9 years, and I could have stayed, but after a while, your natural personality will shine through. And I got to the point where, if truth be told, they kept me around because I knew how to do all the different things, but my attitude sucked because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to take direction. I didn't want to listen. So I was not a model employee by any shape or form. But you could call me at any time to get me to come into work and do what needed to be done. So there's that trade-off. Yeah, he's an asshole, but he can work all 3 departments, so we're going to keep him around a little bit longer. So I think understanding who you are and where you fit and make that adjustment forward, I think, is everything. And what I like to call it is the self-check, personal check, and a financial check, which is, hey, who am I? What am I trying to accomplish? And then, can I accomplish it through my current position? In other words, if I want to go back to school, does my job offer me any sort of classes I can take to better myself? And then financial self-check. Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. Why am I broke all the time? Oh, because I'm going to the bar every weekend and I'm blowing $300. Okay, so maybe you only spend $150. Don't go to the bar right at 7 o'clock. Show up at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Leave a little bit early and spend some extra time making the adjustments that we need to make. I didn't know how to make those calls at the time, or again, just didn't have the confidence to put my foot down and do the things that I wanted to do. They were always there in the background. It's like that book on the shelf we never quite get to read, and I think that's a lot of it, unfortunately, especially with being a young person at the time. We don't have anybody to tell us otherwise.
Well, and I think one thing, a lot of people feel like they've wasted time when they've spent, say, 9 years doing what they were supposed to, but it wasn't necessarily the right path. But sometimes, for those of you listening who are in that place maybe right now, sometimes you have to exhaust what you don't prefer to figure out what you really do prefer, and to be able to appreciate it when you finally take that step and go after it.
Yeah, and you can be smart about it and make sure that you're as prepared as you possibly can be, even if it's making sure your money is right when you go to do it. Okay, at minimum, let's be honest, most of us spend more than we need to spend, and as an entrepreneur, you've got to be smart about that and figure out, okay, well, if I fail, can I still make $2,000 a month? And even if I'm failing, can I figure out a way to make $2,000 a month, which is going to cover my rent or my mortgage and keep the lights on in the house? What is my minimum threshold for living day to day? And then from there you can go, okay, well, now I can do what I need to do.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you, Bob, for sharing your story, your insights, and all that you bring to the world. And everybody, remember, open up those browsers, type in what Bob thinks to get in contact with Bob. And if you want that free gift with the secrets that the business gurus never give you, you can get that at BeTheWolfGift.com. And remember, everybody, when you unleash the power of you, humanity evolves. We'll see you all next time on Be the Wolf. Bye, everyone.